Okay, let's talk about how to make the best of your life without changing anything at all. So, does this sound familiar to you? Like you look around at your life and you think, well, it's fine. Okay, it's not terrible, but I'm not living the life that I know that I'm capable of. Okay, it's like I feel like I'm made for more. Now, you're not trying to burn your life down. You're not craving a dramatic reinvention. You just want to make the best of what you've got without feeling like you need to overhaul everything to feel happier, calmer, or more fulfilled. And if that is you, you're in exactly the right place. So, the first thing that I have to say is that you're not a weirdo for wanting more than just fine. Okay, you're also not dramatic for wanting to feel better about your life without necessarily blowing up what you built. If you appreciate, like it's good. Okay, you just want it to be a little bit better. Humans are wired to evolve. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. Human brains crave meaning and progress and agency, and so this desire to improve your life gently and thoughtfully is very normal. It's very healthy. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting to, improve the way that you live your life, of course. But here's what most people understand or misunderstand about making the most of their life, making the best of their life. They think that it does require a dramatic overhaul. They need a new job, a new house, a new partner, a new identity. Okay, but the biggest shift in life, like in life satisfaction, really come from external changes. They come from your inner world. They come from the thoughts that you practice, the responsibility that you claim, and the stories that you stop repeating to yourself. And so understand that. Okay, the inner work is the place that you have to start. Now, if you grew up around negativity, scarcity, constant criticism, your brain has naturally probably learned to scan for what is wrong. Okay, it's probably why you feel like, well, why can't I ever be happy with what I have right now? Now, if you are that way inclined, it's not because you're negative, it's because that's just what you learnt growing up. It's how we were trained to exist in this world. But if you're trying to build a more fulfilling life for yourself, obviously we need to change the thoughts that you have inside your brain. Okay? And it's easy to do when you understand that when you rewire those old habits, they're just patterns of thought. When you do that work, your life starts to feel almost instantly different. And it's like happening from the inside out. It's not becoming a new person, it's about having a new perspective shift. And here's a truth that I wish so many more people knew is that you don't make the best, of your life by changing everything. You make the best of your life by changing the way that you interpret and view whatever you have around you already. Because the same life can feel completely different depending on the lens you look through it. This isn't about toxic positivity, it's about emotional responsible understanding the power of your brain. I'm sure that if this was your last day on earth, you'd look around and you go, oh my gosh, why did I take so much for granted? You can still acknowledge the hard stuff. Of course, there's going to be hard stuff for everyone. And you can still choose to love the life that you've created. Just one, brave decision at a time. And so stick with me because this is the part that's going to, I feel like, make a massive difference for you. The first little tip is counting your blessings, not your troubles. Okay. So many of us, are too busy counting our troubles instead. Now, I'm not talking about forcing gratitude or pretending that everything is perfect. It's none of that. Real, genuine gratitude comes from acknowledging what's working without dismissing what's hard. Understanding that you are lucky to have things, okay? And you can still have challenges, okay? Both can be true at once. It's not about dismissing what isn't quite working or what's hard in your life. You can be grateful for something and understand that another area of your life could be hard. Okay, that's why toxic positivity is just about like brushing over everything. We're not doing that. Your brain is naturally inclined to focus on only problems, but I always talk about like give it equal airtime. Think just as much, spend just as much time, if not more, on the things that are going right, as opposed to what's everything that's going wrong. Because your brain's always going to find what it is actively looking for. So if I was to say with you, tell me everything that's wrong with your life, you can probably, spill out a list of things. But if I was to ask you the flip side of the question, tell me everything that's going right with you, your brain will still come up with an answer. And gratitude is always going to bring you back to balance, like where you're focused on what is working. Okay, but an honest, true assessment of your life. In order to understand and do this well, like truly, truly, truly make the most of your life, make the best of the life that you currently have without changing anything, the next thing you need to do is take responsibility and ownership of your life versus blaming everyone else. There is such a difference between being a victim of circumstance and living in victimhood. So, responsibility is powerful because it hands you back the steering wheel. Now, you can tell yourself, well, I can't control everything, but of course I can control my next thought, my next action, and my next decision. We can never, ever, ever read other people's minds in this world. We can never, um, convince them to think the exact way that we can think, but we can focus on what we are thinking inside our own brain, what we are doing in terms of our actions and the decisions that we are making. And your life improves infinitely the moment you realize that waiting for someone else to change is just going to keep you stuck forever. And so that's why you have to do the work yourself. Because your thoughts, okay, when I'm bringing it back to the power of your thoughts, are going to create the experience of your life. It's the first thing I learned when I was studying psychology 30 years ago. Your thoughts impact your feelings, which impact your actions, which determine your results in your life. And so, obviously, if you want your life to feel better, you got to start at the thought level. You got to think better quality thoughts, because how you think about your life is going to ultimately determine the results that you have in your life. And of course, you can have a perfectly good life on paper and still feel miserable if your thoughts about those circumstances are crappy. Well, it's not that good, it's not that great, I could do better. You're going to have a challenging life, if you're focused constantly on challenging thoughts. Whereas someone could, have what you might consider not to be the most, on paper fabulous life, but they could experience the best version of that, an amazing life, because they're choosing to view it through that lens. Okay? Changing your thoughts is all about changing your life, but you're doing the work from the inside out. Okay? You've got to have thoughts that are supportive. It doesn't matter. I have lived in a tiny little village where I didn't even have an indoor bathroom with my grandparents many, many years ago. And I lived in bigger houses, and I know that the happiness, like I've been happy in both, and I know that happiness is dependent on the quality of my thoughts. Now, happiness does not mean that you have to feel happy all the time. That's impossible. But it's about understanding that you can have and experience negative thoughts and all that stuff, and it's normal, and still choose how you want to show up in each moment. Because you don't need a new life to create change. You just need a new way of looking at the life you already have. And so just some shifts to help you make everything feel so much lighter is I don't need everything to be perfect to feel good today. Those small improvements that you make count. They add up. You're always going to be responsible for your own perspective. And your thoughts are choices. They're not facts. You get to decide. If you want to tell yourself a different story, tell yourself a different story. But I do hope that you're choosing one that is, that you're the hero in the story. You're not the victim. I want you to write a story where you are showing up in a way that you love. You don't want to be a side character in your own story. And you are allowed to want more without hating what you have. Because your happiness is always going to start internally, not externally. And so for the next 24 hours, I recommend that you just practice. Look around and pick one ordinary moment. I don't know, making your bed. You've got a bed, folding your laundry, stepping outside, asking yourself, what is something good here that I usually would overlook? It's just a simple question. Tell me, can you find just one good thing here that you'd usually overlook? And that tiny little shift rewires your brain way more than you might think. Okay, because this version of yourself that is living a better life, it all started with cleaner thoughts. Cleaner thoughts today. You plant the seeds today. And that version of you is built by the thoughts you choose to think today. And you do it from those little tiny shifts by choosing to count your blessings. And then, funnily enough, they multiply. That's the way it works. And if you want more tools and strategies to think better and feel stronger and take action without overwhelm, grab my free guide to explore my 5 thought shifts to help you get out of your own way. It's included in the description below, but no pressure. It's just support if you need it. Because in a nutshell, the thing that I want you to walk away understanding is that you don't need a massive life overhaul to feel better. You don't need more money, more time, or a different personality. You might think that that will be useful, but what you really need to begin with, without changing anything, is more clarity, more responsibility, and cleaner thoughts, and a willingness to notice what is good. Because making the best of your life without changing anything at this point, because change sometimes happens slowly. But where you start is by changing the things that are fully within your control. The way you think, the decisions that you make, and the actions that you take. Okay, and you make better quality ones in order to create for yourself a better quality life. And you do deserve to live a life that feels amazing to you, that feels good to you. But how do you do it? You start with the things that you can control. Okay, that's it for today's video. I can't wait to catch you in the next one.